Okay, so we just got done seeing Sin City: A Dame to Kill For, the long-awaited sequel to Sin City. Robert Rodriguez returns as director, and Frank Miller returns to help him make it and adapt the comics to a screenplay. And something that's a little bit different about this one is that, like the first one, it's an anthology film, different stories. But unlike the first one, this one has a couple stories that are not from the comic books. They're totally new. So I want to go ahead and just review each story as their own movie. And then at the very end, we can kind of decide whether or not the stories work well together as one whole movie or not. So, real quick, I'm a big fan of Sin City. It's my favorite comic series. It's also one of my favorite movies. I've watched it many times. I loved watching it in high school. Love the behind the scenes about it too. Really interesting stuff. Love Robert Rodriguez. The cast is great. Fan of old school Frank Miller. So really fun movie, the first one, and fun comics. So I mean, and you like the first movie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was really pumped up for this movie. I've been waiting for this movie for a long time, and when I heard that the main story that they would be focusing on in this movie, and it's the title of the sequel, is A Dame to Kill For, which is the second comic that was made when Frank Miller wrote them, but we'll get to that one in a second. So we'll start with the very first segment in the movie. It's called Another Saturday Night. And this is centered around Marv, played by Mickey Rourke again. And this is a short segment. It's actually the opening to the movie. And in the comics, it's a short story in the comics. It's a short one. But it's essentially about just another Saturday night in the life of Marv, which if you've seen the first Sin City, you know that Marv lives a violent and bizarre, borderline psychopathic lifestyle. So, but he's a very likable character. So it's kind of a short and sweet kind of intro to this long-awaited sequel. So having read the comic, it adapts it pretty much perfectly. I mean, and that's what I like about the Sin City movies is that the basing it off the comics that they're adapting, they tend to do it pretty close to the T. And like the first movie, a lot of the shots in the movie are identical to the to the artwork and as well as the actual still shots in the comics. So that's cool. And so this overall is a good adaptation of the short story. The only thing I didn't like about Just Another Saturday Night, and this goes with the pretty much the whole movie, with the exception of I think A Dame to Kill For. And I think this is one of my only real flaw with the film as a whole. Unlike the first Sin City, this movie is very fast-paced. Like, it's moving really quick, and I think a little too quick. I think it could have slowed down a little bit more, kind of let the moment happen a bit more, let the atmosphere sink in a little bit more, let the narration just let it come out genuinely and not rush through the narration, rush through the action, and rush through it all. Like, it goes by really fast. And granted, in this segment's case, Just Another Saturday Night, it is a short story, but yeah, I kind of noticed that throughout a lot of the movie. It goes by really fast, and it could have taken its time a little bit more. Besides that, I thought the opening sequence was good. It's fun. It's watching Marv, beat up a bunch of people, so it's pretty fun. It's a good way to open up the movie. So it's really short. So that's the first segment, Just Another Saturday Night, and then we go into what will be the two-parter of the movie. In the first Sin City, they had Bruce Willis's story be a two-parter. They split that. And this is the two-parter. So I don't know the name of this story because it's not from the comics, but it stars Joseph Gordon-Levitt as the lead, and I think his name is Johnny. I believe his name was Johnny, and so the first half of the story is about this young, cocky gambler who's extremely talented at gambling, and he ignorantly goes into Sin City to face Senator Rourke, played again by Powers Booth, to face Senator Rourke and to kind of not only take his money in poker, but pretty much humiliate him. And, you know, he's messing with Senator Rourke, so Senator Rourke does not take it kindly. And so that's kind of the premise, so to speak, of the story. I thought this was okay. It was good. I didn't love it, but it's definitely one that's not... And you kind of see this more in a lot of the comics, but at least comparing it to the other segments, especially if we were to compare it to the first Sin City, the Joseph Gordon-Levitt story is not action-based. It's much more about the film noir atmosphere of Sin City, and it's the flashy suits, and there's gambling in this one, and poker, and kind of just like the dirty, sleazy atmosphere. Smoking, yeah, just that film noir, that 30s film noir. It's cool though. It's kind of cool. It kind of shows a little bit of the other side of Sin City besides just the violence. So, but it was fine. Yeah, it was a good first half of the segment. So we watched that for the first half of that. Then we kind of to be continued on that story, and then we go into the main story of the whole film of Dating to Kill For. So I don't know if I don't really want to explain this if you don't know the stories already, because it will kind of get confusing. But in the first Sin City, if you've seen it, one of the segments in the first Sin City, The Big Fat Kill, is about a character named Dwight, who's played by Clive Owen. This story, A Dame to Kill For, is the very first story to ever include the character Dwight. And it's the first story about him. And this takes place before The Big Fat Kill. And so, in A Dame to Kill For, he's not played by Clive Owen this time, he's played by Josh Brolin. And the story is about Dwight, who is this very dark, he has a bad past, but he's trying to kind of live a peaceful life now, but at the same time you don't want to push this kind of tough guy. And he ends up being contacted by his ex-wife, Ava, who's played by Eva Green, and she basically tells him that she's like in danger and just manipulated by her, and just due to these really old feelings for her, he's just like compelled to investigate and see what kind of trouble she's in. But at the same time, Ava is very untrustworthy, so you don't know what the end game here is. Again, try not to reveal too much, but for me, A Dame to Kill For was the first Sin City comic I bought back in high school, and I read through it, and I loved it. It's one of my favorites in the Sin City comics. It's just like the ultimate... It's like the ultimate revenge story on old love, manipulation, and, again, revenge, and kind of the past coming back to haunt you. I love it. And so when I heard that this movie was going to mostly base itself off of A Dame to Kill For, I got pretty excited. And even though I really like Clive Owen in the first Sin City playing Dwight, Josh Brolin is like the best choice for Dwight. Josh Brolin is awesome in this movie. His narration is gritty, and you love listening to him narrate. He's got a great tough guy look to him, and he's just great in it. I loved seeing Josh Brolin as Dwight. And Mickey Rourke is in there too for a bit, and he's fun. And so, of course, the real highlight here is Eva Green as Ava, who's just the greatest, most psychotic female villain of all time. Eva Green is amazing in this. I mean, she rocked her performance in 300. She rocked her performance in this. They kind of go back to back, especially since they're both from Frank Miller related stories. So it's kind of funny how that's kind of tied together, but they could not have gotten a better person to play that role than Eva Green, I think. She was phenomenal. And you can tell she's having a good time. And that's what I like about these movies. You just feel like a lot of the cast in these movies are, and this one and the last one, are kind of just having a good time, you know, being behind the green screen and wearing these trench coats and leather jackets and holding big guns and just kind of being cool. So again, I don't want to spoil the stories. I mean, they are short, but still. But A Dame to Kill For, I thought, was adapted really well. I think it's a solid adaptation of the comic. Yes, there's minor changes, but it doesn't, nothing big in my opinion. I totally dug it, and it's the longest story of them all, and I think it's the best one out of this movie. So yeah, I thought A Dame to Kill For was fantastic. Really fun one. So yeah, great one. Then after A Dame to Kill For, we jump back to the Joseph Gordon-Levitt story, and we kind of see the second half of that, which the second half, it goes by pretty quickly, actually. It's a pretty quick wraparound. There's still one more story after that. So the Joseph Gordon one was, overall, it was good. I think it's one of the weaker ones in the movie, but it's definitely not a bad one. It's good. So it's hard to talk about without talking much about the details of the plot, but I don't want to give too much away for it. So it's a solid one. Again, not much action though. This isn't like the other Sin City stories where we follow our lead just beating the crap out of these people and killing these people. This is not that story. It's different. But overall, I thought it was fine. Do you have any thoughts on that?
No, it was good. I really enjoyed it.
Okay. I thought the poker scenes were pretty cool. I mean, I don't know poker, but I understood what was going on. I thought it was well filmed, and we'll get to like the colors and the black and white and later. But the very last story follows Nancy, played again by Jessica Alba, Nancy the stripper. And this one takes place after the events of the Bruce Willis story from the first one. And it's about her wanting to get revenge on Senator Rourke Powers Booth and wanting to kill him. And she, ever since the events of the Bruce Willis story in the first one, she's like an emotional train wreck, and she's kind of going crazy, and she's just going in this dark road. I did not like this one very much. I really didn't. It's the only one in the movie that I didn't like. I didn't hate it. I don't think it's terrible, but it's got a lot of problems. One, it's inconsistent with the first movie and the comics in general. It's inconsistent with, because like the first Sin City, these segments are not in chronological order. They jump back and forth constantly. And when you piece it all together, when you piece the segments from the first Sin City and this one, and the comics in general, because I think what I really love about these two movies is that for the most part, the stories that they're adapting from the comics, they're adapted almost to a T. But this story, the Joseph Gordon-Levitt story is not from the comics. The Nancy story, the very last story, is not from the comics either. This is a brand new story. It shows that this is not from the comics because it's inconsistent with what's happening. Because if you were to piece everything together, Nancy's character would not fit. It doesn't work. And not only that, but when you look at how she's all traumatized and emotionally wrecked, it totally, in my opinion, goes against everything that Bruce Willis's character fought for in the first Sin City. And I think it's almost a little bit of a slap to the face, and I didn't like that. I actually had a kind of a problem with that. I mean, do you feel any different?
Well, I haven't read the comics, so
sure.
I have seen the first one though, and for me, I could feel the how it wasn't chronologically it just wasn't making sense because I was thinking, well, she shouldn't be like this at this point, and but I mean, but I didn't. It didn't bother me as much as it did you. But I still could see the problems it had.
Yeah. And frankly, Nancy was good as a side character in the Bruce Willis story, and she's good as a minor character in the other stories. I don't buy her as a lead. I don't. Like, I really don't. Because Nancy's frankly not that interesting of a character. And I feel... I don't know how to explain this. I feel like in the first Sin City, and when you look at her in a lot of the... as a minor character in the other stories, like, she's a stripper, but she's like a stripper with a heart of gold, essentially. And Bruce Willis's character in the first Sin City, you know, fought and died to keep her as, like, having that heart of gold as much as possible. To kind of keep, I mean, she's a stripper, but kind of keep her innocence as much as he can. As much as she possibly can. And so for her to be, like, all punked out in this, again, I just feel that just doesn't work for that. And again, she's not that interesting as a lead. If they wanted to have a female as a lead in a Sin City story, I'm totally on board for that. But, like, Nancy's not that tough, nor should she be, is what I'm saying. I don't think she should be, like, punked out. If you want, like, a lead story around, like, a woman in Sin City, make it about Rosario Dawson's character. Make it about, I can't remember her name, but the leader of Old Town. Make it about her. Like, she's cool. Or one of those, make it about one of the Old Town girls, you know? They're tough, and they're dangerous, and you could do a story with them, but not Nancy. And, I mean, Jessica Alba, I don't have anything against her, I don't know. I guess she's okay performance-wise in this. But, yeah, besides all of that, the only other problem I have with this story, again, without getting too much into it, at the very climax of it, something involving Bruce Willis's character happens for a brief second. But it does affect what's happening in the climax. And again, I know this is going to sound weird if you haven't seen the movie, but basically, without going too much into it, they kind of hint at something supernatural happening. And I hate that. Like, okay, the Sin City stories are far from realistic. They're a comic. But there's a difference between doing something that's like in a comic book and something that is flat out supernatural. Basically, Bruce Willis kind of comes back as a ghost almost. And it's stupid. I thought that was really stupid. Also, for the record, Bruce Willis being in this... saying that Bruce Willis is in this movie is a lie. I mean, he's in it. I guess it's not a lie, but it's an exaggeration because he's barely in it, and he does nothing.
It's kind of like the, you know, like the Ronin story or the Battleship or the Godzilla, you know, where it's like it shows in the trailers that he's in the movie, but then you watch the movie.
Yeah.
And he's not.
Well,
really
it's not even that he isn't in it much. He doesn't do anything. Like at least Bryan Cranston and Godzilla. I mean. Yeah, he dies in like the first 30 minutes, but he's doing important stuff in the first 30 minutes.
But the way that it's showing...
No, I know what you mean. It's misleading
in
the trailer.
No, but like the way that it's during the story, what Bruce Willis is doing, there's really not much he should be doing though. I mean...
No,
like,
because he's dead.
Exactly.
Yeah, so there's kind of ghost John Hart again, which was...
You know, and like I said, I mean, I don't want to reveal much, but... like we were talking about, I feel like if they hadn't have done that thing at the very end during the climax, I feel like it would have worked. I would have liked it a lot more. I would have felt...
I wouldn't have disliked it as much, admittedly. I still would have thought it was the weakest.
I thought what they were doing with Bruce Willis was cool up until what they did in the climax.
Yeah, sure. I will admit, if they didn't do that little tiny thing, I wouldn't find the story as flawed. I wouldn't have given it as much flack. I still would have found it by far the weakest out of all the stories in this movie. By far. Because I just don't, at the end of the day, find Nancy that interesting as a lead. And here's another thing too. The movie just ends after that story. After that story ends,
it literally
just ends. And what's funny is that as that ends, the last shot is them zooming out of the city, which they've done in the first film, and they do it in the opening of this movie too. And Nancy says something in narration. I felt like she was going to add, I can't remember what the line was, but it said something about like humanity or something. I thought she was going to say a bit more, but she doesn't. She literally says like one line.
It feels like she ends mid-sentence.
Yeah, it sounds like she was going to like add something to that, but then it doesn't. And then it's just City,
it's like
directed by Robert Rodriguez.
It's like a Sopranos ending.
Yeah, like it's
like you're kind of like,
oh. No, the first Sin City has an outro sequence, which actually, okay, that sequence actually wasn't in the comics, but it's whatever. It's like a 30-second outro. Doesn't matter. But it fit though for that. It was a fitting way to end that film. This just ends. And there's not really a resolution to it. It just ends. And I think that's also what weakens that story so much. So if I had to rate each story individually, I would give Just Another Saturday Night a B. It's fun. It's a fun intro. I would give the Joseph Gordon-Levitt's story overall, I would give it another B. Fun story. And then I'd give A Dame to Kill For an A. Well, okay, yeah, I'm giving it an A because I really love that story.
I feel like you're kind of biased towards that story.
I am biased. Admittedly, I am biased because I love the comic.
Yeah.
So, and they did
It's really good, though.
They did a perfect job adapting it, though. So yeah, I'm giving that one an A. I mean, it's just a short story. It's not a whole film, though.
Yeah.
And I would give the Nancy story. I'm giving it a D+ because I really didn't like it. Didn't hate it, but again, the flaws are so distractingly out there for me that it kind of weakens almost the whole film just a little bit. It doesn't ruin the film. And so that's why I would rate each story on its own. So, okay, would you rate each, if you had to rate each one, what would you rate them?
I feel like your ratings were pretty good. The last one with Nancy, I'd probably give it a C for me because, me not reading the comics,
yeah.
I enjoyed it probably a little bit more than you did.
Sure.
But I see the problems with it, but the last one, it was fun, I guess.
Okay, sure. Yeah, again, there's some good action in it. Marv comes into play at the last part of it, which is really fun.
And I thought Nancy with the automatic crossbow was pretty fun.
That was kind of fun, yeah. So how do the visual effects look? That's a big part of Sin City. They look good. They're fitting for a Sin City type film. They, admittedly though, it's not as memorable as the first one though, I don't think. Which I think that's kind of a tough card to beat since the first one was so original for that. But there's definitely not as many memorable visual moments. There's some that are really good.
It feels like Sin City.
It does, but it doesn't feel like it's pushing any new ground in that sense. It's kind of the same stuff. But it looks good though. The special effects I think looked good. There were some cool shots. I really like I really liked the shot of Dwight getting punched out of his window, kind of like that zoom in of him like falling like slowly. I thought that was really cool.
I really liked the shot. I mean, I know it's in the trailer, but I really liked the shot at the beginning of the Joseph Gordon-Levitt scene where he's on the top of the hill with the car and he's flipping the coin and it's looking behind him over Sin City. I really liked
and with that, like I said earlier, I really like the poker scenes. Like the colors in that were done really cool. Like I like that a lot. I really like that a lot. So that was cool. One minor thing, Brittany Murphy, who was in the first one, her character, Shelley the bartender, she's in every story in the first one, and she had a minor appearance in A Dame to Kill For the comic. Thing is that she died a few years ago. Actually, it's been a while now, but she died, and so I remember reading that they weren't sure what they were going to do about that, and they just took her. If you're wondering, they just took her character completely out of A Dame to Kill For. She's just out of the picture. She's not even mentioned, which I'm okay with that for the most part because I didn't think her character was that important in A Dame to Kill For. It's the same story in the end, so that was fine. But another interesting thing is that Michael Clarke Duncan, who played, I forget his name, but the big black guy that he played him in the first Sin City with the glass eye.
So that was a different guy.
Yes.
I felt like it was.
It was, yeah.
Okay.
Michael Clarke Duncan died too, in between these two films. I always forget the guy's name, but they got President Palmer from 24.
Well, the guy from the Allstate commercials.
Allstate, President Palmer from 24 plays him. And he honestly plays him just the same. I mean, yeah, that actor is not as big as Michael Clarke Duncan, but they did a good job making him look the same though. And he acts the exact same. It's the same character.
And he has a deep menace.
Exactly, yeah.
You
And that character appears, if you're wondering, I mean, he kind of appears in not all, but in a lot of the comics. He's like that guy that just never dies. Like, he's
like Jaws.
He is exactly like Jaws. Like, he's always getting shot up and stuff, but he always appears again and again. Always serving somebody else, you know. So it was fun seeing him. That he has a much bigger role in this than he did in the Big Fat Kill Story. So, yeah. But I thought they did a good job with him. President Palmer did a good job playing him. I thought Brittany Murphy's character, Shelley, not being in it at all, I didn't think it was distracting. I didn't even think much of it, actually, going into when I was watching it. I didn't think about it much. So, if you were wondering about that, there's that. So how does this movie work, all in all?
I thought, in my opinion, I thought it flowed pretty well.
I thought it did, too. I thought it was...
Like the transitions and everything like that, it flowed.
Yeah.
It never felt forced or anything, you know?
The only thing I didn't like about it as well, again, just it felt a little rushed. Maybe not forced, but a little rushed. The pacing was really fast. I thought actually the transitions between some of the stories were good, but some of them I thought it ends and then just starts up another one. Whereas in the first one, they like kind of, for every story, they would kind of fade to black, let the music kind of play out, and then open it back up, kind of give you a moment.
How long was it?
I don't know.
Because, I don't know if it was just because I was having so much fun or because it felt rushed, but it felt like it went really quick.
It did go by
the movie.
It did go fast. And
it was kind of like it started and then it was like, oh man, it's already, like...
I completely agree. I completely agree. It did go by pretty fast. And I think part of that is because of how fast the pacing is. But I admit, I was having fun, though. The first movie will always have a soft spot for me because in high school, that was like my favorite movie of all time. So I wasn't going into this expecting to have that same spark.
Yeah.
It would be unfair. It would be unrealistic. So I wasn't doing that. I was just hoping it would adapt the comics that it was adapting well and that the new stories would be suitably satisfying as well, and that it would overall be a fun Sin City sequel. Overall, it did that. I liked 3 out of the 4 stories. You liked all of them, so I mean, I think it's a fun movie.
If you liked the first one, you will like this one.
Yeah,
it has the same art style. And
it's fun. I really liked it a lot. It's not as good as the first one. It's not. Well, I'm just gonna say it now. I'm not gonna repeat over and over again, but I think it's a solid sequel, and I'm all for them continuing to adapt the comics. I would really, really love for them to adapt Hell and Back, which, if they continue to adapt these stories, that will probably be the last one because that was the last comic that he wrote, and that comic is kind of a wraparound for the whole franchise in general. But that's the longest story, I think, out of all of them. So that could almost be an entire film on its own. With
they'll probably do
with maybe a couple short stories
to wrap it all up
before and after. But that would be great. I would love to see them adapt to Hell and Back.
I'm sure it depends on how this does. So I'm sure this will be.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope. Gosh, take Ninja Turtles off #1, people. But although in order for them to properly do Hell and Back, one of the main villains in Hell and Back is introduced in a bunch of short stories, and she's this seductive assassin. So I think they would have to do those stories. I think what they should do is, if they make a Sin City 3, adapt a few of the other stories first, and have her stories in there as well. So her character's introduced, and then the very last Sin City can be To Hell and Back, where she comes back in, and it's kind of the wraparound for the whole series. That's what I say they do. If Frank Miller wants to keep writing newer stories that weren't from the comics, sure, yeah, just, dude, you wrote these comics, man. Make sure they're consistent with each other, dude. Like, I don't think that's asking much. But yeah, all in all, I dug the movie. I had a very good time. I would definitely go see it again. It's definitely not gonna be like on my favorite movies of all time list like the first one, but I liked it a lot. I still thought it was a lot of fun. I say if you're a fan of the first one, go check this out. Especially if you're a fan of A Dame to Kill For. I think it did a phenomenal job.
Or if you're like an Ava Green fan, she Ava Green's this movie.
Yeah, if you loved her in 300, you'll love her in this. And if you love Josh Brolin doing tough guy stuff, you'll love.
You love Mickey Rourke.
Yeah, if you love Mickey Rourke as Marv, you get a lot of Marv in this. Marv is in every single story in this movie, except he's in the Joseph Gordon-Levitt story just a little bit, but he's in every single one.
He's still you see him and he talks to.
Yeah, briefly, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd say go see it. Fun movie, lots of fun.
I recommend it.
So that's Sin City. We'll have some more.
Did you want to talk trailers really quick?
Sure. Sure. So for straight, we got Dracula again. I'm getting really tired of that trailer. At least give us a new trailer.
Yeah, it's always the same one.
It just looks stupid.
The only thing I like about that trailer is the Lord song.
Yeah, I like the music too.
It's a Lord adaptation of an older song.
Yeah,
I really like that song.
Well, I love Lord. She's like my. For those who don't know, she's like my favorite top 10 pop artist. I think she is so much better than all the other mainstream pop artists, and she's like the youngest one. Yeah, I love her style. Yeah, that's cool. I like the song in the trailer. But yeah, we got that, and then we got a new drama by. I think it's the director of Juno, and it's called Men, Women, and Children, and it's a drama from what it looks like. The trailer I thought was kind of unique. All the dialogue in the trailer is not said; it's all seen through text messages and social media messages.
Maybe that's how the movie is. I think that would get really tedious.
I wouldn't like it if that was the whole film.
Yeah, that would get really
if that was the whole film, I would hate it because I would feel like I'm getting a really pretentious vibe off of it. But the whole trailer, and as a trailer, I thought it was unique. If they do that for some of the movie, that'd be cool. But I wouldn't want that as the whole film. But
kind of like how they did it in like Nonstop.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. Adam Sandler's in it, and normally when you hear Adam Sandler's in a new movie, you kind of cringe. But it's a drama, so that's promising because Adam Sandler occasionally does a drama film, and when he does, it's actually usually really good. So it's promising. I like it when Adam actually does a real well-written film, not his crappy comedies. Mm-hmm. So I'm actually looking forward to hearing more about that. And then we got what was the Johnny Depp movie?
It was the one about all the. It was the Disney one about all the fairy tales.
Oh, that's right. We got a Disney movie. It looks.
It's kind of like a gritty.
It's that new. It's that new trend that's writing, taking a gritty contemporary adaptation.
And it has
of a
Johnny.
classic.
Just think of a
Meryl Streep
Johnny Depp movie.
It's Meryl Streep. It's taking Disney, based on what little they told us in the trailer. It looks like it's taking classic folk tales and
fairy tales and
giving it that
Grimmy.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm really.
It was weird.
It's opening on Christmas, and then we got
Tarantino.
A tiny little teaser for the new Tarantino film. I know that it looks like a western, maybe another western. I don't know. I'll look more into that later. The Hateful Eight, I believe, is what it's called. Which I think this is his 8th film. So I think so. There you go. And then what was the other one we got?
We got the horror movie.
That's right. We got there's a new Amityville film coming out, which I don't even know the last time a theatrical release happened for an Amityville movie, because most of them are direct to DVD because they're so stupid. But I think the last one was a remake that Michael Bay did, a remake of the original one. There's a new Amityville film. It looks like they're shooting it in the original house, which is kind of cool, but it looks cheap. It looks generic. It looks like it's riding off of the paranormal trend, but it's just
from the people who made Paranormal.
Oh yeah, guess who the producer is? From the producer of Paranormal Activity and Insidious. Who is the? I gotta look him up because every horror film today says from the producer of Paranormal Activity and Insidious. And I actually like those two movies. But this guy is apparently behind every single horror film now, whoever he is. So it looks like a generic
it was pretty funny though when we were watching the trailer because like the first half of the trailer kind of looks like a
family drama,
and then all of a sudden it gets like dark, and I kind of like leaned over to you. I was like, "Is this a horror film?" And you were like, "I guess."
I started to wonder if it was a horror film when they said that they were moving into a new house. Because it's about this family with, like, a terminally ill child, or comatose child, I think. Whatever.
He's not really a child, though. He looks
teenager,
like
sorry.
He's like
and they move into the Amityville house. Guess what? It doesn't go over very well. But yeah, kind of the first, like, 30 seconds is, like, kind of drama, like, we're moving into this new house, and things are going to be a great new start for us, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, whenever like they set this up where a family's moving into a new house, it's almost never going to be a drama. It's always going to be a horror film, like a haunted horror film. It is. My heart was a little broken when I realized that Kurtwood Smith is in this movie. I think.
Oh, that's right.
I think he's the doctor. I think, or not the priest.
He's a guy looking over the condition of the teenage son. Or whatever.
I might, out of loyalty to Kurtwood Smith, I might go see it for that. And just to review it, I might go see it. Just because I love Kurtwood Smith. I love RoboCop and I love that 70s show. So, he briefly appeared in 24.
I mean, he
got killed.
But like you said, it just looks generic.
Super generic, paranormal, haunted, blah, blah, blah.
Just jump scares.
We didn't get any other shows, did we?
I feel like we got another one, but
I feel like we did too. We got a lot of shows.
We got a lot.
That's what happens when you go.
I feel like we got one before the Adam Sandler one, but I don't remember.
I think you're right, but I'm trying to remember what it was. Ooh! That's right. Now I remember. I can't remember the name of it, but it's a... Oh, it's the guys in Brooklyn.
Yeah, that one.
I can't remember the name of it, but Tom Hardy. That's it. The lead is Tom Hardy. And it looks like a crime suspense drama.
Yeah.
These guys in Brooklyn that kind
Something
of
about
do deals under the table.
They're kind of like ex-mafia guys.
Yeah, and like they run a bar, and it looks like just kind of under the table. They'll exchange money.
It's called Drop Point.
Drop Point, yeah. And they're kind of, even though they're not really doing that much criminal, just because they're in Brooklyn and because they're in mean streets, they'll exchange criminal money under the table, just give it to the next guy. They don't take any of it. But then it looks like they get robbed one night and the money that they're supposed to drop off gets stolen. So now they're held responsible by the mob or whoever it is. And so now there's like targets on their head. Maybe. It might be good. Tom Hardy's a great actor, so it's got potential. So we'll see. We'll see more about that later. So yeah, that's Sin City: A Dame to Kill for. I'd say go see it if you like the first one. A lot of fun. So we'll have some more reviews up soon. So thanks for watching.